Hi, my name is Lauren Schneider, and I am replying to Melissa's starter discussion on racial inequality and poverty. So, um, in terms of poverty and being structured according to race and ethnicity, we learned that poverty rates are exceptionally high amongst Black, Hispanic, and Native American women. The poverty rate is highest among Native American women. The poverty rate of female-headed families with children amongst Hispanics and is highest amongst Hispanics, and the next highest is African American women. Um, and then when discussing just race and ethnicity and not discussing in terms of gender, the poverty rate is highest among African Americans, and then the next highest is Hispanic. Society gives stereotypes to the poor, and they internalize these negative stereotypes. They begin to feel shameful, humiliated, and they have a disgrace for who they are. And then Yvette replied to this starter post also and said that maybe one of the reasons for poverty being structured to certain races is because of transportation. And she talked about transportation in terms of schools. But I also think transportation in general could be a big reason. So there's poverty tendencies in terms of regions also. In the past, the majority of poor people lived in urban areas, and since then the pattern has changed. Since 2000, the poverty rate in suburban areas has increased by 65%. There are more poor citizens living in suburbs than in major cities, and I found this to be very alarming. And I feel one contributing reason could be transportation. Public transportation is more easily accessed in bigger cities because there are more forms of public transportation. So transportation is one of the contributing reasons for the increasing poverty rate. Okay, now to the stories in chapter 4. There was definitely a lot to do with racism and discrimination. I found the story about the slaughterhouse to be very interesting. In that story, I found what was most interesting to me in that story was the workers see one another as a problem, and they see competition in the skin tones. At the slaughterhouse, the Blacks and the Mexicans are at the bottom of the pecking order, but they still want to be better than the next. It just like amazed me that rather than coming together at they would rather be in competition with one another. And just for example, a black male was speaking to the rest of his friends, and he says, "If that white man keeps treating me like a Mexican, I'll beat him." And even though, in terms to the white male, or I mean the white person that he's speaking of, he's kind of just as low being black as he is being Mexican, but in his eyes he feels he's better than the Mexicans. And it just kind of amazed me that they didn't want to come together and join together, and they just felt that they rather be in competition with each other. And there was just another example, and they had like a big fight going on, and it was the Blacks and the Mexicans fighting against each other at their job. They were waving knives at each other. They were making rude comments. They're spitting at each other, and one person got fired for spitting at each other. And they would rather lose their jobs over a fight between two races that were at the bottom of the totem pole at this job, as if that's who they were supposed to be fighting with. They didn't see the bigger picture as they could come together at this job and make a difference at this job. They just rather fight with each other and make no difference. And then Melissa's question at the end of her video is, how can we affect change in our fields, even if it's something little? And I feel at my job, I work with kids with behavioral problems, and they're kids ages 4 to 8. And it's interesting to me that young children are already having racist views. And right now there is one African American child, and the rest are white. And this one kid that's usually pretty well behaved only has an issue with, in terms of having issues with other children. He only has an issue with the one black kid, and they're not huge issues. They're not like physical fights, but they're like microaggressions that you can see. He'll tell on the kid. He'll cause little arguments during circle time. He just always wants to point him out, and almost like he's trying to embarrass him. And I mean, they all have behavioral problems. So they're always, not everyone's making the right choices at all times, but so he always just wants us to get him. He always wants to get this kid in trouble. So during group activities where they have to be partnered, I will purposely partner these two children because I want the white child to get to know the black kid for who he is, because there's nothing wrong with this kid. He's a perfectly normal, average child, and I want him to stop judging people based on their race and start to judge people based on their character. So I feel how I affect change in everyday life is I challenge people. When I see somebody that has a racist view, I'll have them challenge that view to just get experience with that race, because I feel a lot of times that racism usually is out of not having experience with diversity. A lot of times they're just stuck in their ways and they've only been around one type of race, or they just haven't had a lot of diversity in their life. So I just like to challenge people's views.